لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم المصطفى الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما والحمد لله على كل حال. So, alhamdulillah. You guys been paying attention to the news? See what's going on in the news?
What?
Yes. Right? So for 8 months, it's been almost 8 months now, right? For almost 8 months, we are watching live and in full effect Israel killing innocent Palestinian civilians. We're watching the destruction of homes. We're watching the destruction of the land. We're watching the destruction of lives. But despite that, they have not been able to make the Palestinians despair. The reason why so many people in this country are becoming Muslim when they see the positivity amongst the Palestinians is because during World War I and World War II, when it happened to the Europeans, they gave up faith. They said, like, where is God in all of this? There must not be a God. And so when they're looking at the Palestinians saying, Alhamdulillah, I lost my mother, I lost my father, I lost my whole village, but I still have my iman, it's hard for them to understand. And so they began to enter into droves into Islam. But if you just take a moment, just reflect on the stories that are in the Quran, you will see immediately kufr, disbelief, is connected to despair. Starting with shaitan. What is his name? Iblis. Ablasa, it means that he despaired. While iman is connected to hope. Hope. And inshallah, that's what I'm going to focus on tonight. Like, how can someone, in the face of hardship, in the face of disappointment, in the face of loss, in the face of grief, maintain hope? Because that's what you're seeing in Palestine. In Palestine, you are seeing iman in the form of hope. That's what you're seeing. All right? You know that this is, if you read the books of like Imam al-Bayhaqi, he has a book called Furu' al-Iman. I believe that's what it's called, Furu' al-Iman, like the branches of faith. And he has collected all of the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about what constitutes iman. And those different hadith in there where he's explaining that in order for a person to have yaqeen, which is the perfection of iman, to have absolute certainty in your faith, you have to go through the station of hope. No one can go around it. You have to go through it. And this is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you on notice in the Quran. He put you on notice. He let you know. You're going to get tested. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوءِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Without doubt, we are going to test you. مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, fear. وَالْجُوءِ, hunger. وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ, you're going to lose money, property, lives. You're going to be tested with this. But then he ends the verse by saying, give good news to those who can be patient. And in other verses in the Quran, it's explained in different ways. So for example, in Surah Al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts off saying, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم. He created death and life just to test you. And then in the very next verse, he tells you why. أيكم أحسن أملا. Which one of you is going to be, they're going to have spiritual excellence in their actions. The meaning is, we're going to test you. That's what life is all about. That's why you have to experience death. How are you going to respond? That's the question. أيكم أحسن أملا. Which of you is going to have ihsan in his actions? Ihsan, spiritual excellence. You want to see spiritual excellence? Despite bala, look at the Palestinians. You might wake up in the morning and your tire is flat. And you're like, why me? I'm running late. My boss is going to. My professor is going to. Man, what if you wake up in the morning and everybody in your family is dead except you? Can you say Alhamdulillah despite that? That's what we're witnessing in Palestine. Right? Allah is letting us see it. All right? In the books of Tazkiyah, they give you these stations that you have to pass through if you're going to reach yaqeen, certainty of faith. So it starts with tawbah. Right? You just got to start making tawbah for being ghafil, just being heedless in your life. You just say, Ya Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, tub alayya. Cover me, Ya Allah, sturni, Ya Allah, bi sitrika al-jameel, Ya Allah, cover me with a beautiful covering, right? And you just stay there until the ghafla begins to leave. Because the ulama, they say that the sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven you for something is that He makes it easy for you to overcome that thing. Right? So you begin with tawbah. And then mujahada. And in some of the books they say sabr. It's the same thing. Mujahada, spiritual struggle. Against who? Against yourself. Spiritual struggle. And you need patience for that. So they're both correct. The next level is what? Fear and hope. In every khutbah, we talk about taqwa, which is a type of fear, right? It's not necessarily khawf, you know what I mean? But what we don't talk about is hope. You don't hear too many people talking about that. Hope. Hope. Raja. To place your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? So what is hope? It is to attach your heart to an expectation, a good outcome in the future. That's hope. And the condition is that you're working towards it. That's the difference between wishing and hoping. When you hope for something, you're working towards it. When you wish for something, you're just thinking about it. But you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything about it. Right? And so that's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Whoever hopes, they have hope in the meeting with their Lord. You hope to meet Allah in a good state? Okay, work. فَلْيَعْمَلْ. Let them work. What kind of work? عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Good deeds. Righteous deeds. See? And then he goes on to say, وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِإِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. Don't associate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, don't mess up your good deeds by associating shirk, by associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? And then he goes on and he says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْفَقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ سِرًّا وَأَلَانِيَةً يَرْجُونَ تِجَارَةً لَن تَبُورَ. Those who recite the book of Allah, it's talking about actions, working. They recite the book of Allah. They establish the prayer. They make the prayer a pillar in their lives. وَأَنْفَقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ. And they spend out of what we have given them. They give out. سِرًّا وَأَلَانِيَةً. In secret, they spend in secret, but they also spend openly, especially when they're trying to encourage other people to do it. Right? They spend. Hoping. يَرْجُونَ. Like in other words, their hope is, their hope that they have in Allah because of what they're doing, lan tabur, it will not fail. Lan means never. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, it will never fail. In other words, if you do business with Allah, and your hope is in Allah about that business, your transactions with Allah, your good deeds, your salat, your qiraat, you do that, and your hope is in Allah, your business with Allah, it won't fail. You're going to win. Suhaib ibn Sinan, one of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of the companions were leaving Mecca at the time of the Hijrah, going to Medina. And so a lot of the Sahaba were leaving Mecca in terror. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen to them. There was people that would get caught and then imprisoned, and sometimes they would get caught and made to give up their faith. And so Suhaib he's trying to leave. And a group of the gangsters, because they were youth, they found out that he left. They track him down out in the outskirts of Medina. He sees them coming. He gets off of his steed. And when they get close enough, he says to them, Ya Quraysh, you know that I am the best archer amongst you. And I will shoot every single arrow that I have until I kill many of you. And when I'm out of my arrows, I will fight you with my sword. And then you will kill me. And then I don't care what you do with my body. But if you let me go, I will show you where all of my wealth is in Mecca. I'm going to give it all to you. You can have everything. You can have my house, you can have my money, you can have all my wealth. You can have it all. Just let me go. So they knew he wasn't fronting. He wasn't playing. So they were like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. Let's just let him go, because he's gonna kill a few of us. So they took the deal. When he gets to Medina, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, because Rasulullah was informed of what happened. Right? Angel Jibril told him what happened. So as soon as he sees Rasulullah says, your tijara with Allah was successful. Your business with Allah, it was successful. You see? He put all of his hope in Allah. And he lost hope of all of this dunya, all of this world. He placed his hope in Allah. And Rasulullah told him, that tijara that you did sincerely for the hope of, hoping in Allah, coming to join the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being around your brothers in faith, that was successful. This is what is being referred to here. Lan tabur. It will not. You won't lose. You won't fail. You won't fail. Huh? All right. So when, hope, when you have hope, it multiplies your resolve, your persistence, your perseverance. It fills the person with steadfastness. It fills the person with patience when the hope is placed correctly. So that when I was telling you about World War I and World War II, like this is when secularism really, really took off in the world, actually. Because they gave up hope. They began to tell themselves, how can God let this happen? They do it to themselves, and then they blame Allah. But when your hope is placed correctly, you become filled with patience. You say, I can do it. Lillah, for Allah. Because your hope is in the right place. All right? No one can persist in being obedient if they don't have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one. You forget about it. All right? If you cannot hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you, if you cannot hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will complete your deeds, including the ones that are, right, the deeds are broken. They lack the conditions. They might lack sincerity. But you place your hope in Allah, say, Ya Allah, Qabal, Ya Allah, just accept it from me, Ya Allah. Right? No one can overcome trials and tribulations without hope. It's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, life without hope, and when I say hope, I'm talking about hoping in Allah. When I say hope, I'm not talking about, because there's a different Arabic word for just kind of like wishful thinking. Amal. Right? When a person just says, oh, I hope he brings pizza instead of sandwiches. Right? That's a hope that's connected to the dunya. There's a different word in Arabic. There's only one word in English. Right? But hope, when you're hoping in Allah, it's called Raja. Ra, Jim, Alif, Hamza. Raja. When you place your hope in Allah, when I say that, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about wishful thinking. And I'm not talking about like some dunyawi, I hope I get Spirit Airlines instead of Frontier. I'm not talking about that. All right? I'm not talking about that. Okay? All right. So this is what the ulama say about hope. So just try and consider where you are. Where are you at? Where are you at? Where's your hope at? There's many degrees to hope. But they say there's three main ones. Number one, when the servant he knows, man, he's messing up. He's messing up. He's he got a lot of sins. And so for him, his hope has to be in forgiveness. He has to forgive. He has to be hopeful of the forgiveness of Allah. Because there's some people that despair of the forgiveness of Allah. They despair and they're just like, I'll never be able to give it up. I'll never be able to overcome it. Allah's never going to forgive me. I'm going to go to the fire. No. Imam al-Hakim records a hadith in his Mustadrak where it's a hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the speaker, but it's not Quran. It's revelation to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam without the angel Jibril. That's what it is. Hadith Qudsi. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's this direct communication between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam without the angel Jibril. And he says, whoever approaches me by a span, like a hand span, someone just does a little bit, I will approach him by a cubit. A cubit, right? And whoever approaches me by a cubit, I will approach him by a fathom. Right? So if you come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the length of this table, he's going to come to you 100 yards. Whoever comes to me walking, I will come to him hastily. This is Allah. Right? What do you sense when you hear this? Hope, right? Wow, okay, I can do it. And then it goes on to say, whoever meets me with nearly the size of the earth, filled with sins, I will meet him with forgiveness in the same amount, as long as he doesn't associate partners with me. You see? This is what the person who is covered with sins, right? They're covered with bad habits. That's where their hope has to lie. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. What about acceptance? So let's just say that somebody has struggled against themselves, you know what I mean? They've reached a certain, they've overcome a lot of sins and they've been persistent in doing good deeds. Yeah, but you still have to have hope that Allah will accept them. You still must, right? You want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept them. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. Right? You can work hard all your life and all the conditions of your deeds are messed up. And then you meet him and those are no good, but I still forgive you. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts those deeds, you get the forgiveness and the rank of those deeds. So we always want acceptance of our deeds. All right? One of the things that we always want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept is what? Who puts up their hands like this except they're hoping for something? When you put your hands up like this, yeah, you're hoping. If you're downtown LA at the Skid Row and you walk by someone and they put their hand out to you like this, they're hoping for something. They're hoping. When you put your hands up, you're also hoping. Who are you hoping for? Who are you hoping in? You don't know?
No.
Allah. Right? Allah. But you have to know this. Dua has its conditions. Dua, it has its conditions. So sometimes we're making dua, and the dua is not being answered. We're like, man, what's going on? All right? One of the conditions of dua is that you don't stop, even though you haven't been answered. That's one of the conditions of dua. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, he says it's haram. It is haram to say to yourself, it's not going to be answered. I'm going to stop. He said that is haram because it's close to despair. It's close to despair. Despair. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Forget about it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the hadith, I believe, is recorded by Imam al-Tirmidhi. He said, no, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you're going to get one of three things. Either the dua is going to be answered. The reward of you asking, you'll find it stored up for you in akhirah. Or you will be forgiven in the amount of that thing that you're asking for. So you're going to get one of those three things. So when you raise your hands, place all of your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't be meek. Like, maybe he's going to do it. Maybe he's not going to do it. No. You place all of your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, supplicate to Allah. Like supplicate to him. While you are certain of a response. Here, you're certain. You have awesome hope that your dua will be fulfilled. Because then he goes on to say, Allah does not accept the dua from a forgetful or distracted heart. So you're reciting the words, oh Allah, but you're thinking about the pizza that Abdullah's getting ready to bring back. Rasulullah is like saying, no. You have to put all of your hope, all of your expectations into that dua. Focus, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can fulfill it. That's one of the conditions of the dua. Hope. Hope. And then of course, right? You have some people who they start off they do mighty good deeds. They're not just thinking about themselves, but they're thinking about the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they build great institutions. They build masjids. They build schools. They build hospitals. They build clinics. See, most of us, we just thinking about ourselves. Yeah, ya Allah, I'm gonna make dua for you. Just me, just thinking about me. And I'm making salat, just thinking about me. Right? Do you know it's better to make dua for your brother? You know that? Because the angels, when you make dua for your brother, you make dua for your sister, the angels say Ameen. So you are included in what you're asking for the other person. How often we forget that? How often? It's just like, nah, just me, ya Allah. Nah, just me. Right? Like the man who was praying, and Rasulullah Islam heard him praying, and he was saying, Ya Allah, forgive me and have mercy on me, and forgive Rasulullah Islam and have mercy on Rasulullah Islam, but no one else. And Rasulullah Islam told him, he said, listen, you are trying to constrict something that is vast. Like, that's bad adab with Allah. His mercy it includes everything. Everyone. Huh? So if someone is doing something to benefit others, what they hope for is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will complete the blessing. Because when you're working for humanity, you're working for the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're doing these big deeds, it might take a lifetime. You might not see the completion of it in your lifetime. So what you do is you place your hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill it. That Allah, He will complete it for you. You know? Yeah. I mean, just think about Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah. Think about Imam al-Nawawi, great scholar, you know? But he only lived to like mid-40s. His mid-40s. He did all of that work. You know, he wrote Riyadh al-Salihin, he wrote the Arba'in Nawawiyah, the 40 Hadith. He did this beautiful commentary on Sahih Muslim. You know, he edited fiqh books. He was Bahar. He was an ocean. He had no idea that his books would be like a staple in every Muslim house from the time he passed away until today. But Allah completed that blessing for him. Allah completed it for him. The same with Imam Ghazali. He only lived till his 50s. You know, and you know what he said about his book, Ihya Ulumuddin, right, which has 40 chapters. He said, I read it 40 times, and each time I found mistakes in it. He said, I read it 40 times, I found mistakes in it. I finally just told myself, there is no book except that it has mistakes in it. Only the book of Allah is free from mistakes. I'm going to put it out. Hopefully the people can benefit. And it's like the most popular book on tazkiyatul nufus, purification of the self in the Muslim world. It's like the mainstay in Southeast Asia. You know, from Pakistan, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, like in their curriculum, you look on the tazkiyatul nufus, it's always Ihya Ulumuddin. Right? Who did he place his hope in? Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed it. All these people benefiting from his work. Ya ibadallah, beware of losing hope. Beware of losing hope. All right? To get my point across, I'll end you with this because I see Abdullah looking at me. I know what that means. Think about this. Nabi Yaqub, the prophet Jacob, the father of Joseph, Benjamin. He has a small son. And very early on, while he's just a young child, it's understood he's Nabi. He's going to be a prophet. He's Nabi. And then his sons deceive him, they take him, they say, oh, then they come back, they're crying, they say, oh, the wolf ate your son. Look, there's the blood to show you. Here's the blood. He knew that they were lying. But they're his sons. He still has to have ihsan to them. But he lost his son. And then, later on, he ends up losing Binyamin also. You see, Nabi Yaqub did not just lose a son. He lost a Nabi. Someone who receives news from on high and then brings it to the people. That's what he actually lost. That's what you have to understand. When you read the Quran and you see that he, in some translations it says he went blind. Some of the scholars say he developed cataracts because of how much he used to cry. You have to understand, he didn't just lose a son. He lost a Nabi. He lost, the best human being that could ever be. That's what he lost. At the hands of his children. And then he loses Benjamin after that. But listen what he tells listen to what he tells them. When he tells his sons, go back to Egypt. Try to find Yusuf, because he tells them, I sense Yusuf near, I sense. And they're like, happy, like, stop. Like, give it up already. This is what he says. قال, he said, إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. I only complain about my distraction and my grief to Allah. Like, I'm not complaining to you. You don't hear me crying to you. You don't hear me, asking you to change the world about this. No, this is between me and Allah. And then he says, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. Don't despair of the mercy of Allah. And then he says, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. The only ones who despair of the mercy of Allah, in other words, the only ones who don't have hope in Allah are people who disbelieve. And that's why I started off this talk telling you what happened in World War II. You want to know why the world became so secular so fast? They gave up belief in Allah so fast? Because they gave up hope in Allah. No. They think they're giving up hope in Allah. They gave up hope in themselves. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us than ourselves. They gave up hope in themselves. Don't give up hope in Allah. Don't despair of the mercy of Allah. The only people who do that are people who they don't have faith. They don't have faith. This is what he's telling his sons. After he lost Nabi Yusuf, he lost Binyamin, there's a famine going on, they don't have enough food and everything, and he's saying, listen, don't despair. Don't despair. The only ones who despair, after all of this loss, Nabi Yusuf grew up in Egypt. He grew up in Egypt. All of this loss, he's still saying, don't despair, don't give up hope. Does that sound familiar? That's what you see in Palestine. That's what you see. No matter what, man, the babies are being lost, this is being lost, this is being lost. Wallahi, our hearts hurt. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. One time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to his companions, he said, shall I show you a person of paradise? Shall I show you a person of paradise? Of course they say, yes, Ya Rasulullah. So he takes them and he brings them to an Ethiopian woman who had severe epilepsy. She would have seizures so bad that her clothing, she would become uncovered. You ever seen somebody with grand mal seizures? They do like a severe shaking for a long period of time. And when they come out of it, sometimes they don't remember who they are. They don't remember what happened for the last four hours. That is a tribulation. That is a tribulation. So the Sahaba are looking at her. She's looking at them. And she says, Ya Rasulullah, make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes this from me, the epilepsy. And he tells her something to the effect of, I guarantee you paradise if you are patient. She chose to be patient. She accepted the deal. And then she said, Ya Rasulullah, just make dua that when I have my seizures, that my aura doesn't become exposed. My private areas don't become exposed. Who is she placing her hope in? Who is she expecting Jannah from? Her compensation? Who is she? Allah. Allah. Right? Man, this is this is what we have to do. This is where we have to be in our iman. Shaqiq al-Balki, another one of the early Muslims. He's telling the story of how he began to kind of get his spiritual life together. He's telling us this is how it started. Balkh is in Afghanistan. Any Afghans here? MashaAllah, he came in just in time. He came just to hear this story. So Balkh is in Afghanistan. You'll find that some of the most spiritual people from the scholars. Anybody ever heard of Mullah al-Qari? Very famous scholar from Afghanistan. Abdullah al-Ansari from Afghanistan. Very, very spiritual scholars. They were Buddhists before Islam came. So they already had a spiritual tradition. And when Islam came, it just made them more spiritual. So when they took Islam, they really took it. So Shaqiq al-Balki, he's saying, he said, I was in the village and there was a severe famine. There was no food. He said it was so bad that some of the people could only find food in the carcasses of other people. That's how they were surviving. They were eating the dead. That's how they were surviving. And he said there was this young boy who came to the village to, do some errands or something like that. And he was very joyful and he was very happy. And he's everybody else is depressed. And so Shaqiq al-Balki says to him, how can you be like this and everybody is doing bad? And he said, my master owns those villages over the ridge over there. He owns those villages. I'm not worried about the famine. It doesn't affect me. I like the rich in this country. When there was in the 30s, the Great Depression, and there was a drought, and a lot of people were starving and stuff like that. Yeah, right here, right in America. But there were super, super rich people, they didn't feel it. It was like that. And so he said, no, my master I'm cool. And Shaqiq al-Balki said, it dawned on me that I also have a master who can take care of my affairs as long as I hope in him. And he said, that is what began my spiritual career. Hope. It started with hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill my affairs. And when you read the books of Tazkiyah, he's like one of the most famous characters in there. One of the most famous characters. All right? I will end with this. There are two surahs in the Quran. There are two surahs in the Quran, right? I don't have enough time to go over them, but I'm just going to tell you them. Surah Al-Duha, wal-layli idha saja, ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala, right? You read that, read it, read the tafsir, understand it. It's all about hope. And then the one right after it, Surah Al-Inshirah. Alam nashrah laka sadrak wa wada'na anka wisrak. Some of the mufassirin, they say that these two surahs used to be read by the Sahaba without Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in between. Right? Like they used to just read them together. So they didn't, at the end of Surah Al-Duha, they wouldn't stop and say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, they would just keep going. And they give a lot of different reasons. But some of them just say, because it was about hope. Both of them about hope. One is about hoping in Allah to fulfill your dunyawi needs, duha. And one is about fulfilling your spiritual needs, inshirah. So in Surah Al-Inshirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And the scholars say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said it twice. Like there's this emphasis there. There's this emphasis there. And based on the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that one difficulty will never overcome two eases. So the ulama, they pull that apart and they look at it and they break it down and they say, for every difficulty, there are always two eases. Before the difficulty came, you had some type of ease. Be thankful. And when the difficulty goes, there will be another ease. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ease twice. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. إِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. The ease will come. The ease will come. Right? There was ease before, right? There was a time in your life you didn't care about nothing. You just happy-go-lucky. When we were young, right? Now we got all these responsibilities and stuff now, but when we were young, not you guys. You guys just you don't know what we're talking about. I'm joking. Right? But it says everything is okay. And then, boy, man, when you got to start adulting, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. Right? But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, for every hardship, there is relief. There is relief. Don't give up hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Place your hope in Allah. No matter where you are. If you are filled, your life is filled with sins, don't give up hope in Allah. Hope in His forgiveness. Ask for His forgiveness. Continue to ask for His forgiveness. If you're in the middle of trying to establish yourself, trying to establish your spiritual stuff, you're trying to establish your salat and your spending and your awrad, your dhikr, your tahajjud, yes, you hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept these things. You hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep guiding you to those things that make you acceptable, make your deeds acceptable. And if you're working on a life project, you don't know if you're going to see the end of it. You don't know if you're going to see the completion. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill it for you. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill it. You guys know Ta'leef Initiative? Anybody heard of Ta'leef Initiative? Ta'leef Initiative? I was in the Bay Area with Usama. I remember when him and his brother first became Muslim. Anas and Usama. I remember when Usama came back from Morocco and he was married, and we used to gather in his apartment, and we used to just talk about, helping new Muslims that would come into the deen and stuff And, when I went to prison, I read about Ta'leef Initiative in Rolling Stones magazine. I was like, man, he took it to a whole nother level. But then he got sick. You guys remember, he got really, really sick. And he ended up passing away. He had 2 chapters. So Ta'leef Initiative is basically, what they call like a third space, right? It's not like a masjid, but it's also not a, completely, place that has no dini teachings. It's like in the middle. Everybody can come. Like the mantra was, come as you are to the deen as it is. All right, so people who's not really ready to step inside the masjid 5 times a day, this was a place where they could go and still hear the good word, even if, they was out in the streets doing whatever, right? And when I look at what it has become today, I'm like, Usama must have been making a lot of dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will complete this for him, because he wasn't able to complete it. But they have a chapter up in the Bay Area that's doing really well. And they have a chapter in Chicago that's doing really, really well. And they're always inviting scholars and things like that. And inshallah, he's getting the thawab for all of that. And he passed away young. He was maybe in his 40s. Passed away young. He passed away a few years ago. But inshallah, Allah completed that for him. So if you're in the middle of a life project, you don't know how you're going to complete it. You don't know what you're going to do. You're trying to raise your kids and you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know how they're going to turn out, whatever. Man, place your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do it for Allah and ask Allah to complete it. And He will do what you cannot do. And I'll pause right there for any questions.
We're talking about hoping. We have to associate with the work, deeds.
Yes.
Take it in action.
Yes.
But can I have that, and I wanted to do it, if I just hope and I don't think about it, just hoping, that be wishing.
Yeah.
The wish.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
The work has to be done.
That's right. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those verses, He connects hope with work. Hope with work. Hope with work. So you have to. So what he was basically saying, you might not be able to hear in the back, but he was saying, he would just like to emphasize that, when you have the hope, you have to do the work too. That's true. Otherwise, it's just wishing, empty wishing. It's true. All right. Dinner is here?
No, Dina, I want to ask.
Oh, Dina. Oh, okay.
So what's the Arabic word for the word hope that is for hope in the dunya?
So amal, right? So it's like alif hamza, mim lam. Right? Amal. I meant to, like I hoped. But it's like hope that's connected to mundane things.
Raja.
Raja. Right. Raja, that's
the one.
hoping in Allah. It's like a spiritual hope in Allah. Assalamu alaikum.
You said a hadith about you coming closer to Allah by a handspan, right?
Yes.
And Allah would come closer to you by, what was the measurement you used?
Right. So it's if you come by a handspan, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to you by a cubit.
And how much more is a cubit?
Then a handspan?
Like how many handspans?
It's like 10.
10?
Right. You do one, you sincerely intend for Allah, you sincerely do work for Allah, you sincerely, in other words, like, if you just say, Allah, I'm trying to draw near to you, Ya Allah, I want to do this for you, Ya Allah, I want you to accept this from me, right? And you just do a little bit of work. You give $5, Allah multiplies it. He multiplies it. You make 2 rakats, sincerely, 2 rakats, He multiplies it. It's not like, 1 for 1, like, okay, you do a little bit, I'm going to give you a little bit. No, Allah is, right, merciful, like, and that's what He wants us to understand, because He doesn't want us to despair. You don't have to do the whole journey by yourself. That's in other words.
Where can I find this hadith?
So it's in the Mustadrak of Imam al-Hakim. It's in the Mustadrak. So it's you can find, Jahir bookstore in Anaheim.
Is it in Bukhari?
It's not in Bukhari. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. The reference that I had was the Hakam, the Mustadrak. So let me just explain to you what the Mustadrak is. Mustadrak, it means addendum. And what Imam Hakim did was he gathered all of the hadith that fit the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim, and he put them in one book. Because Imam Muslim has a criteria, of all those hadith that are sahih, he has his own criteria. Imam Bukhari has his own criteria, right? But they didn't gather all of the hadith out there that were sahih. So you had scholars later, after them, not too much later, maybe 50, 60, 70 years later. They said, okay, everybody's accepting these books, so let me find all the hadith that fits the criteria to these two books, Bukhari, Muslim, and I'll gather them in another book. That's what that is, the Mustadrak. Right? And so it's the addendum to Bukhari and Muslim. That's what it means. So look up, Imam Hakim, Hakim, Imam Hakim.
Could you say more on the difference between non-Muslims that have something like hope and then Muslims that have hope? And then is it like a qualitative difference? Is it going to be a practical difference? And then maybe how to like help convince them over to having the right quality of hope?
So he's asking a very sophisticated question. Right? He's saying, between the Muslim and the non-Muslim having hope, like what's the difference? And what can you say that the non-Muslim has to do to purify his hope or to
inspire him?
I would say that the foundation is Iman itself. The foundation is Iman itself. Because there's a lot of people who they do good deeds.
Could I add something? Like for example, Prophet says that the dua of the oppressed, right? And so this is like a dua that's sincere in that moment, and it seems regardless if you're Muslim or not, right?
So there you go. So he said, what about like the dua of the oppressed? The dua of the oppressed, like it seems like anybody who makes that dua, it would be responded to, and that's absolutely true. But you said the answer right there. It's a dua. Who are they calling on? Right? Who are they calling on? They're calling on Allah, even if they have the wrong belief about Allah. Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti said that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful that even people who call on Him with the wrong understanding of Him, He will still respond. Because people have filters and people grow up wrong and all these different things, not necessarily their fault. Right? It's all of these different things. But if a person sincerely places their hope on that which they know is larger than them, you know what I mean? This spiritual, guide, creator of the world, and they sincerely, and they say, "Oh God," He will respond. And so there it is. So I think it's simple. It's Iman. Because if you don't believe in Allah, who's you going to place your hope in? Right? You're going to place your hope in the military, you're going to place your hope in the UN, you're going to place your hope in measly human beings. I'm shooting for the stars. Ya Allah, I need you, Ya Allah. Yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. I'm sorry. There was one, I'm sorry. He raised his hand before you. I'm sorry.
When you said earlier that it associates the work with the hope, what do you mean by hope, by work?
Right. So like say for example, if a person is seeking forgiveness, they can't just say, "Oh, Allah forgive me," but they have the intention to go back to that thing today, tomorrow, next week. They have the intention, right? He goes to Vegas, he spends, he's gambling, he loses $10,000, and on his way back he says, "Rabbi Gfirli." But he knows he's going back next week. He's not doing the work. He's not trying to give that thing up. You see? So he has to be like, "Rabbi Gfirli," with other conditions. He regrets what he did. He's not going back. And he's doing his istighfar. Right? If a person is trying to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have to start by doing their fara'id, all of those acts that are mandatory, the 5 salats, zakat, Ramadan, Hajj, if they can afford it. They have to start doing that. They have to do the work. And then they can hope that Allah will accept the deed and accept them. They're doing the work. They're making the forgiveness. You know, when a person is building an institution and they sincerely are like, I want to do this for Allah. I want to continue to get good deeds while I'm in my grave. So I'm going to build a masjid. People who are praying in that masjid, I still get rewarded for it. Right? Okay, they're doing the work. They're getting a non-profit and they're doing they're doing the work, what it takes. Calling the contractor to lay the cement, all of that's work. And trust me, it's work. But they're doing the work, but who are they hoping from their compensation from? From Allah. So it just depends on, whenever you hope, there's some work that goes along with it. If we hope that the war in Palestine will stop, if we like genuinely hope that, then we should be on all of these campuses, across the country. That's like USC, downtown LA, UCLA, they just started last night, right? We should be putting in the work. Be with them. Because that's what ended the Vietnam War. It became unsustainable. There's too many people against it. It was too many. Matter of fact, the civil rights, man, I got so much I want to say to you right now. I just don't know how much time I have. So I'm just going to say this. The civil rights got passed in this country because of that. The disruption that you see on the university campuses, people marching in the street, that's how the laws got passed, so that Muslims from other countries could come to this country. You think it was always open? No, it was not. It didn't happen until 1964. Because you had all these black folks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, all these black folks marching in the streets, saying, nah, you can't discriminate against a person because of his color. You can't discriminate against a person because of their religion. You can't, you know what I mean? You saying that this is the land of the free? We ain't free here. And so they in the streets, they marching, they're disrupting the system. They did the work. So now we're benefiting from the work. We're benefiting from it. We forget that, right? If the Muslims want to see change in Palestine, they got to be part of the process. They got to be part of the process. Don't buy your food from companies that are giving a portion of the money to Israel. They got apps out there now. You go into the grocery store, you can just scan the little barcode, and it's going to tell you whether that money, the thing that you're getting ready to buy, if some of the money is going to Israel. You got to do the work. You want the war to end, you got to do the work. That's what's happening all across these campuses. This disruption. People are sacrificing their time, their money, their lives, their careers. They're sacrificing everything so that justice will prevail. That's what Allah, He loves. Allah, He loves that. I hope that answers your question. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka.